I mentioned this briefly in my last video, a New Zealand citizen detained with her 6-year-old son at the US border. Well, I found 2 more reports on her story, and the complete lack of empathy from CBP. Well, we shouldn't be surprised. One of the reports comes out of New Zealand, where she's from. The other is from Seattle, and for once, their coverage is actually informative. Before we dive in, a quick shout out to our newest channel members. Your support means a lot, and I still plan to do a Zoom call with you guys soon. I'll provide an update in a member post coming up shortly. Also, a big thanks to our moderators. In July alone, you helped to manage over 58,000 comments, and that's not a small job. So I sincerely thank you for your support. Just a public service announcement. Please double check the channel name when you're clicking on my videos, and make sure it's actually really my channel. There are copycats out there trying to mimic what we have here. Stick to the creators who genuinely care about Canada, not just the views. If you want to follow real Canadian voices, stay until the end and I'll share my list with you. Some of them you are probably following already. All right, let's get started.
A Kiwi mum and her 6-year-old son are in an American immigration prison tonight, but the reason for their arrest is unclear. The US Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency, known as ICE, arrested Sarah Shaw and her son Isaac on July 24. But for weeks, nobody knew where they were and their friends thought they'd been kidnapped. Political reporter Glenn McConnell's been following this developing story and he joins us now. Glenn, has anyone been able to speak to Sarah?
Okay, I just want to pause it here for a quick second before he starts, because the news anchor just said that Sarah Shaw was unreachable for weeks, and her family thought she'd been kidnapped. I've been speaking to one of our viewers offline, and she actually gave a pretty good tip. If you do have to go to the US, whether it's for family, business, or any urgent reason, make sure you have some kind of tracker on you. It could be an AirTag or some other brand, I don't know. That way, if something does go wrong, your family will know something's up if that tag doesn't move from the border. They'll also be able to see if you actually made it past CBP. Now, I know a lot of us just aren't going at all, so we don't have to worry about this. But there are still Canadians who have family just across the border. And for them, this could actually make a big difference.
Well, that's the thing. Initially, nobody knew where she was. Her friends say they were worried she was kidnapped, and that's because ICE didn't properly register her arrest and the arrest of her son. Now, they were picked up on the way back from Canada. She had gone to Canada to the airport to drop off her 2 eldest children so they could spend their summer holidays back home in New Zealand with her whānau. I've actually just spoken to her whānau here, and this has been incredibly stressful. They say it is even worse because her father right now is going through some medical issues. So this added stress is just making everything much harder. But during the time, her friends, yes, they thought that she was kidnapped, and I spoke to her friend in the US, Victoria. She is one of just 2 people who the prison guards will let Sarah speak to. She said it is a dire situation at this Texas detention centre. She is sharing a room with 8 other people.
Sarah has been having almost daily panic attacks. She's unable to sleep throughout the night. Because she's placed in these rooms with families she doesn't know, many of them actually don't speak English. It actually took Sarah almost 3 weeks to find a single person in the facility that did speak English. So it's been very isolating for her and very traumatic.
And she's there with her son. Is he doing okay?
So Isaac, he's doing the best he can. He's 6 years old. He doesn't understand what's happening. This was actually his summer vacation from school. He and his mom had so many plans, and he's missed out on a lot of them. So
I can't imagine what her 6-year-old son is going through. Being in a place like that, surrounded by other detainees you can't even talk to. It really shows the kind of hell that people are dealing with when they're detained. The Seattle report after this takes it a step further. It digs into the so-called reasons behind all of this. And if those reasons are true, at least for the son, you're going to be furious that her son was even there in the first place.
All right, Glenn, so how has the government responded?
Well, these 2 New Zealanders, they have been in this prison for weeks now. But when we spoke to Foreign Minister Winston Peters this afternoon, he said he was still looking for information about what's happened. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs, they have said the same thing. I just called up the American Embassy here in Wellington. They don't know what's going on. They said I need to go to the State Department back in the US to work out what's happened. I've gone to them. It's very unclear why they've been arrested. It seems it was some minor paperwork issue. Her friends say that she does have the right to work in the US, and her union, she's actually a public servant in the US, is calling for her release, her immediate release from this prison. But look, the issue is, in the US at the moment, under US President Donald Trump, these arrests are becoming increasingly common. He wants a crackdown on what he says is illegal immigration. So many immigrants, whether they're there legally or not, are being arrested right now.
Political correspondent Glenn McConnell, thank you so much.
During Trump's campaign, wasn't it all about catching the drug dealers, gang members, and the so-called bad people causing chaos in the US? So why are civil servants, US citizens, tourists, and people who are actually contributing to society now being detained? We've got just under 3.5 years left of this, and it's only going to get worse. Sure, thousands of people are still going to the US for their own reasons, but I'm not risking being that 1 in 10 or 1 in 20 who ends up detained by CBP or ICE. Now, this next report out of Seattle breaks it down a little bit more on why she was detained. So let's get into it.
Alejandra Guzman joining us now. You've been following her case. What do we know?
I mean, we know that the family was actually headed up to Canada back on July 24th for a scheduled summer trip. Now, Sarah Shaw made that quick trip up to Canada with her 3 kids, and her 2 oldest were actually heading to their grandparents' house in their home country of New Zealand for the summer. They had no issues at drop-off, but when Sarah and her youngest son tried re-entering the country, Shaw's attorney says that they were flagged by Border Patrol agents. They told her her travel permit was expired. Her attorney says she does have a pending green card application, which allows her to travel, live, and work in the U.S. The work portion of her permit had been renewed, but as it turns out, that travel portion, well, it wasn't. Her attorney says the agents who stopped her, they could have made the decision to let them back into the country, but instead they were detained.
So the agents who detained her could have decided just to let them go. Or why not just let them back in Canada? But instead, they were just sent to Texas. Sarah isn't a drug dealer. She's not a gang member. This is just another example of the lack of empathy that CBP used to have, but doesn't anymore. I remember traveling to the US with my friends years ago. One of them was from Australia, and he needed an ESTA, but totally forgot. We got pulled aside and told to go inside. He apologized, and after a stern warning, he was able to fix it right on the spot. The CBP officer even told us to go have fun, and gave us recommendations for nightclubs. But the difference? During the whole time, we were never worried. It's not exactly the same situation, but the difference is huge. Back then, at least there was some understanding. Now, the empathy seems gone. And it makes me wonder, what would have happened if this happened in 2025?
Both Shaw's attorney and Shaw's friend telling Fox 13 the 2 are being held at the Dilley Detention Center just 70 miles southwest of San Antonio in South Texas. Shaw's friend tells me the single mom has lived in Everett with her kids for the last 3 years and is a state worker under the Washington State Department of Children, Youth and Family. The agency has now confirmed their employment.
So where were they detained? At the Canadian border here?
That's where they were trying to get up to. They went up to Vancouver because it was easier to fly out from Canada, direct flight to New Zealand rather than from SeaTac.
So why are they being detained in Texas and not in Tacoma?
It's a tricky question, but as we now know, I mean, her attorney believes that they were actually taken there because the Dilley Detention Center in Texas tends to house primarily women and children in that specific area. But her friend tells me that she's really concerned.
She is a civil servant. She serves some of the most at-risk youth in our community, counseling them in a maximum medium security juvenile detention facility. She's supposed to start graduate school. However, this experience has been the first time I've actually heard my friend cry. This is the first time I've heard her be almost hopeless in some situations. She feels like a criminal. She said it's exactly what she would imagine prison to be like.
Does she sound like a criminal to you? She works as a counselor for the city of Everett, helping some of the most at-risk youth. She's not selling drugs, she's not hurting anybody, and she's not a gang member. It makes me wonder, does CBP have a quota that they're trying to hit every month? We already know ICE is supposed to detain 3,000 people per day, but maybe CBP has their own numbers too. Let me know what you think in the comments.
So, Ali, you were mentioning that Shaw's attorney says that she doesn't have a criminal history and just essentially misunderstood the status of the application. But how did that misunderstanding happen? Because you're wondering, you know, why didn't she know that before she traveled out?
I mean, it's a very complex process in her case. We know that we're talking about a twofold card here. So when she thought that she had applied for both the travel portion and the work, permit. It just turns out that only one of them, or half of that permit, was actually renewed. So it's pretty tricky. Her attorney says that Sarah thought that she had the right travel permits and just simply calls this a simple mistake. But when Sarah asked agents to readmit her under the humanitarian parole, well, she was actually denied. And as you know, under the Trump administration, we've seen a lot of changes to these programs. Some have even been terminated. Her attorney says that it's all up to agents on the border.
At the end of the day, it's up to the agents. And I keep coming back to this. There's just no empathy anymore for simple mistakes. A mistake that my friend made back in the 2000s would probably get him detained today. But this next part, yeah, it's gonna make you say, what the fuck?
And I want to be very clear. Her 6-year-old son's paperwork has been in order, and her attorney says that there's no reason why he should be detained.
She's a survivor. She's a fighter. She's really strong, but she's also like very stressed out about all of this. And she's repeatedly requested that her son be released. Even at the border, she repeatedly asserted that he was admissible, that he had a valid travel document. She had her partner, her boyfriend, and another friend both willing to come and get the child, and DHS refused to permit that. Again, his detention is unlawful.
Her 6-year-old son had the proper paperwork. Everything is in order, no issues at all. And yet, he was still detained and sent to Texas with her. What happened to the rules? If doing everything 100% still gets you detained, then what's the point? I honestly don't know what to say to that. But I do know one thing, her son should not be there.
So, Allie, I know a lot of people, especially like DACA recipients, are very concerned about traveling for exactly this reason. What advice does her attorney have for other people?
I mean, anyone who has going through any permitting status, trying to do things the right way, as we hear a lot of folks say it. Well, she's just urging everyone to not even travel if they don't have to, especially in times where you may have a loved one who is sick. Well, she says just to encourage you to speak with a lawyer yourself before you do any of that travel. Sarah's case is still scheduled for a hearing at the end of this month, but in the meantime, her attorney is working on getting them released. We've also given ICE officials 24 hours to respond and share their side of this story, but so far, we've not heard back. If we do, we'll bring you their response.
All right, Allie, thank you for keeping up with this. We'll
Thank
check
you.
it back in.
So you've given ICE 24 hours to get back to you. Yeah, good luck with that. Anyways, Sarah's case is just one more to add to the long list of unnecessary detainments. And it really makes me wonder how many actual criminals or drug dealers ICE has actually detained. It's a reminder that whether you need permits or you're just visiting for tourism, business, or anything else, you're still fair game. I truly hope Sarah and her son are released soon. But you can bet that our impression of the US is never going to be the same after this. And to our viewers in New Zealand, this should outrage you. One of your citizens went through this, while the so-called drug dealers are still walking free. Now, back at the start of the video, I said I would share some of the other content creators that I personally follow and enjoy watching. So here's my list of channels I think you should also subscribe to. Bill Kelly, Steve Boots, Klaus Kellerman, Todd Maffin, The Rational National, Charlie Angus, and The Planet D. These are creators who give you news from a Canadian point of view and actually bring value to the conversation. A lot of people I just listed can give you way deeper insights than I can when it comes to politics, trades, and tariffs. I'm not an expert on these topics. I'm just a regular Canadian who's tired of how the US media treats us. Each of these channels brings something unique. They have their own perspectives and their own expertise. As for me, I really don't know what my expertise is. Maybe it's the occasional cat meow in the background and the same frustration that a lot of us share towards the US administration. My advice? Stick to the ones who are here for Canada, not just for the views. If you found this video helpful, give it a like and subscribe. It really helps get the message out to more people. And also share it with your friends. And if you're still here and you want to see my other videos, check out the ones that are popping up on your screen right now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.